Hey guys, what's up? It's Biscuit Boo Horror Reviews. I'm here with a review of a Canadian low-budget horror comedy parody slasher film from 2018. I'm talking about Death Camp, not Camp Death 3 in 2D. I will be referring to it as Camp Death from now on, though. So this movie is meant to be a parody of slasher films, specifically Friday the 13th Part 3. The plot, considering it's a parody of film, doesn't matter too much, but it's essentially about a group of mentally disturbed adults who are at a summer camp, and there happens to be a killer on the loose in the woods. So the plot kind of rivals Friday the 13th Part 5 in a way. The movie starts with a black and white opening kind of chase scene set up to essentially the plot, where a killer is chasing a woman through the woods, and then suddenly the killer is convinced by the woman that he is chasing, who is using a puppet to talk to him. He believes this like pink Muppet basically is his mother, and she essentially convinces the killer of that. And then she seemingly kills Johan Van Dam, who is the killer. That's the killer's name, at least. And that's how the movie opens. So it's very similar to the ending of Friday the 13th Part 2. But this time with a pink Muppet. It's not a bad start to the movie, but it doesn't bode well in comparison with the rest now that I've seen the entire film. So the movie has this very wacky, absurd kind of vibe going on, very similar to like a Zucker Brothers movie like Airplane. I've seen people compare this to Airplane quite a bit. The Naked Gun movies, even like the later Scary Movie movies, like those ones kind of match this, at least like the third one. Because this movie is nowhere near as bad as Scary Movie 4 or 5. But, yeah. Either way, this movie is very on the nose, and that's kind of one of the big problems I have with it, because while the Zucker Brothers, their movies were definitely wacky and all over the place, they at least had a little bit of subtlety going on with some of the actual, like, humor and satire they were trying to do. And they were aware of what they were trying to do a parody of. I'm not saying this film doesn't know what it's trying to be a parody of, because it makes references not just to, like, the Friday the 13th movies, it also makes references to movies like The Burning, for a prime example, which I would say that's a decently somewhat obscure movie. This movie has a really interesting, fast pace, and it kind of feels like they, read through and, like, shot the movie, and then they realized, man, these scenes of dialogue aren't as funny as we thought they were, so maybe we should speed them up a bit. So there are scenes where it feels like the film has been sped up, not by a lot, like, maybe by, like, just 5%, but it's kind of noticeable in how fast people talk and move in some scenes. That could have just been me. I don't know, but that's what it looked like was going on. As far as acting goes in the movie, it ranges. There's really nothing necessarily good here, but you can tell that the people who were working on the movie were having fun while working on it, and that is an important factor to these kinds of low-budget films. The characters are flat and wacky, and as far as effects go, what there is of practical blood and gore is pretty cheap looking, but still pretty enjoyable for what it is. There are a couple scenes in particular with like a throat being slit that are actually, pretty good quality for the most part. There's also some CG blood and gore in there, and I understand they were doing this on a low budget, and that they were going for definitely humor over the horror elements, but still the CG gore and blood just looks so fucking bad. There's some scenes in the movie that feature some really bad green screen, and I can understand, for example, there is a scene that is literally just a parody of the speeder bike scene in Return of the Jedi. And I can understand wanting to use a green screen for that, because you have no real choice otherwise. But then there's just scenes where people are standing in the woods talking, and I'm like, was it raining that day? Did you only have that person for a couple days, so you just had to do it on a green screen? It's kind of weird, because there are times when it's very obvious that they are just throwing an image of a forest on a green screen and having somebody read their lines in front of it. Then there are moments where it looks like it's green screen, but I can't say for certain. Yeah. That's something that happens in this movie. There's some references to other slasher films, like I said. The Burning is one that I saw quite a few references to, with the kind of groundskeeper of the camp being named Cropsy, which is also attributed to that urban legend. There's a whole subplot in the film that is basically just a reference to Caddyshack, and it feels really unnecessary, and it's not funny at all. It's very much forced in and just not enjoyable in the slightest. There's a musical number in the film that's sung by one of the people attending the camp, and this character, this is like pretty much the only main screen time this character gets, and they waste it with a song about how he wants to kill people because he's mentally disturbed. And it's just like, okay, this guy can sing. If it really is him singing, he can definitely sing pretty well. But this whole musical number didn't need to happen. I get that this is a parody and you're trying to go for something wacky and different and everything like that. And I guess I can kind of at least respect that you want to do something wacky and different with your slasher parody, so you want to put a musical number in it. But in all honesty, the slasher musical film, I can't even remember the title of it. Stage Fright. The slasher musical film Stage Fright just did the whole musical number in a slasher film kind of set up a lot better. Oof. You see the problems I have here, right? This movie is very, very hit or miss with its jokes, and a decent amount of the time, I want to say anywhere from 50 to 60% of the time, the jokes do not hit, and they just kind of come off as either forced or unnecessary or not really that funny or just trying too hard to be edgy. I mean, there's like the uncle character who pretty much like gave the money to fund the camp, and every other word in his dialogue is fuck or some variation of it. And you know, maybe at first it was like, ha, oh man, he said you fucking fuck cock-nosed motherfucker. But after like 5 minutes, you're just like, this is just not even like clever. It's not even trying to be funny, and yeah. Overall, it's a decently made movie. It's not like it's, you know, an absolutely horribly shot or put together movie. There are times when the budget of the film does show, but I think overall it's well made, considering the budget and everything like that. It's not a poorly made movie. It just has problems in the writing department. And like I said, I think the biggest problem I have with this film is that it's super on the nose. And the thing is, you can do that sometimes. You can do on the nose parody humor and get it right. For instance, the first like 3 scary movies, those movies aren't like, the first one's pretty good. The second one is kind of mixed, but I still like that one quite a bit. And then you get the third one, which is very mixed, but it's still got some good moments in it. And, like, you know, those movies are very, very on the nose and just kind of ridiculous in what they're parodying and what they're doing a parody of. This film doesn't, just kind of does it on the nose, but I don't know, it just doesn't really work here. Maybe it's because they don't have a decent writing team. I mean, the Wayans brothers are actually, you know, pretty decent at writing humor, and the Zucker brothers directed like the third Scary Movie, I think, so they definitely know parody films. Oh, shit, I don't know. You know, and there are definitely times, most of the time too, where on the nose humor can fall into the categories of just annoying and unfunny, and then there are times like Student Bodies and Scary Movie, and pretty much almost every Zucker and Abrams film is just really on the nose about it. But it at least, I don't even know where I'm fucking going with this. I guess I can't be surprised by the lack of subtlety in this film, considering it says in the trailer that it has as much subtlety as a rock to the face. So I guess I can't complain too much about it, although I have already. Yeah. This movie is fun still. I'm not gonna sit here and like bullshit. Even though about 50 to 60% of the time it was not funny, there are some pretty good moments in the movie, especially early on and in some of the later scenes. But there are just big chunks of this film that just aren't funny to me at all. And humor is definitely subjective, so that could just be me, wanting this to be, the next fucking... wanting this to be as funny as, like, Duck Soup from the Marx Brothers or something like that. But I don't know, I don't know what else to say. On the gore meter from 1 to 10, 1 being something like Nosferatu, and 10 being something like Peter Jackson's Brain Dead, Camp Death 3 sits at like a 4.5. While I did say that there aren't a ton of practical effects, there are some good practical effects here, and there's some pretty decently graphic scenes of gore, and there are even some props as far as dismembered body parts go that kind of look like James Bell's props, because he sells those on eBay. So I can't confirm that, so I'm not going to sit here and say that, but it kind of looked like that. Overall, honestly, if you want a consistently fun and enjoyable kind of slasher horror parody film, stick with Student Bodies, stick with The Final Girls, stick with You Might Be the Killer, which is one of the gems from last year. But if you've seen those movies, if you've seen the scary movies, then I would recommend this to you. Because while this isn't necessarily even that good, it still has, again, few good moments. And you never know, you might like it more than me. I have a very weird sense of humor, so I can't say that your average person wouldn't enjoy this, because I feel like if you were to put this movie on Netflix and people were to hear about it through word of mouth, this could actually become a pretty big cult film. If you never know. That being said, look out for this movie. It's going to hit streaming and Amazon Prime sometime early this year. I've heard anywhere from like late January to mid-March this movie is going to drop. But anyway, guys, this has been a review of Camp Death 3 in 2D, and I'm gonna give this one probably a 2.5 out of 5. I can't say really that much about it because it's a movie I think a lot of other people would enjoy, but I personally, it's not something I can really get into as much, and that kind of makes me sad because I really wanted to like this movie, and now I'm starting to ramble, so I'm gonna quit now. Anyway, guys, Biscuit Boo Horror Reviews signing off. Peace.